Hi all, today we will learn how to create, deploy and test Salesforce function. Please subscribe my channel Easy Coding with Shantanu to get the latest updates. For today, we can send an email from Salesforce Lightning Experience through external email services, just like Gmail or Outlook. How will you enable this feature? You can go to setup, then search with email services, then enable external email services. Remember one thing, you cannot enable both external email services just like Gmail and Outlook at a time. You can enable external email service for Gmail, or you can enable external email service for Outlook. Let's come to our today's agenda. So first we will learn how to set up compute environment, how to create Salesforce function, then how to invoke Salesforce function locally, then we will see how to deploy Salesforce function into the respective org, then we can execute or we can invoke the Salesforce function from our Apex class. At last, we will see how to test or how to execute Salesforce function, and then we will discuss some questionnaires. Now, let's go to the practical. So first, we have to set up the compute environment. So for that, the first step is that definitely in VS Code, we need to create a SFDX project, and obviously we have to connect with our DevHub org. So DevHub org means, already in the previous session I have told, I sign up the free 30-day trial Salesforce function developer edition. So you can sign up using that link. In the previous session I have described how to enable the DevHub as well as how to install the respective softwares to run or to create the functions. Let's go to the practical. So for demo purpose, already I have created one SFDX project. So whoever doesn't know how to create SFDX project through VS Code, in Windows you can click on that, you can go to settings, or in MacBook also you can go to settings, but for Windows shortcut key is that just like Ctrl Alt P. Sorry, my mistake. You can go to the command palette, the Ctrl Shift plus P. Yeah. Now you can create the SFDX create project with manifest. So when you click on that, you can select that which template you want to use for the SFDX project. So for now, or for this training purpose, I have used the standard template. Then you can enter the project name, and automatically after that the SFDX project will be created. So until this, I have created the SFDX project. The name is that training Salesforce function, where the respective package.json is there, SFDX project.json is there, all the required components or the scripts or the manifest present in that project. Now we will use this project for Salesforce function. Now what is the first step? We need to connect to our DevHub org. So how can I do that? Then Ctrl Shift P. Then you can authorize the DevHub org with this project using SFDX command. So click on that, SFDX authorize a DevHub. So I can keep the name is that, let's say SF function. So currently it is trying to authorize the DevHub org through my VS Code. So it will redirect to that dev instance URL. So now I am logging to my Salesforce function instance. So login successfully, go back to the VS Code. Now we can see it's, yeah, I am able to log in successfully into my Salesforce function dev instance. Now here, if that the still you can, if you see the no default org set, you can click on that. If it's coming automatically, it's good. If not, then you can select the existing or the just now you logged in the Salesforce function dev instance, you can use that. So here I have kept the respective authorized dev hub alias SF function, so I can use that. Okay, so automatically it will come as the SF dev hub. So previously actually I logged in using the same instance and I kept the name as SF dev hub, so that's why it is coming as SF dev hub. Basically the SF dev hub nothing but just now I logged in that the SF function. Okay, now what we will do, this comment is most important just to ensure are we able to log in function using SF syntax or SF comment. So I will do that, SF space login functions. Okay, in the earlier session I told do not use that the parcel, instead of that you have to use that the command prompt. So I go to the command prompt here. Now I will write the same syntax, SF login functions. Then it will redirect to that the my dev instance. Okay, now get started with functions. So we need to log in that the free Salesforce function developer edition org, which I have logged in just few minutes back. So here, yes, now it's logged in successfully using SF login function, and also we have checked that SF syntax or SF command is executed properly. Now what we will do, we will create a scratch org from this dev hub org. Okay, so this is the function org. If I'll go to this is the Salesforce function org where that dev hub is already enabled. Sorry. You can see that the dev hub is already enabled, so we will create a scratch org, and in this org also the Salesforce function is enabled automatically when we have signed up this org using the particular the trial org link. So in the previous session I have mentioned how to register or how to sign up, how to get the access to the free Salesforce function developer edition org. So now what we will do, we will create a scratch org. So for that we need to go to that the project scratch definition.json file. Here we need to write the functions. So scratch org will be enabled to execute the Salesforce functions from the compute environment as well. So what I will do, I will write that functions, save it, then we will write a syntax to create a scratch org. So what syntax we will use? Let's say sfdx force is to org is to create -s -f, then we need to mention the root path of the project scratch definition.json. So let's say then we need to give the alias name of the newly created scratch org. So let's say for now what I will do, I will put the alias name is scratch org 3. So this is the syntax, sfdx force is to org is to create -s -f, then we need to mention that the config/project scratch dev.json file, the root directory, then hyphen A, which mentions the alias of the newly created scratch org. So let's wait to create the scratch org for our Salesforce function. It will take a minute to create the scratch org, but what I would like to mention here, when you will create the scratch org from the dev hub, you need to check that the expire date. So currently by default the life of the scratch org is 7 days. During creation of the scratch org, you can set that the expiry date, that the end date, but after creation you cannot extend. And also before creation of scratch org, you can see, or you can describe, you can update the project scratch dev.json as per your business requirement. So here we have to run the Salesforce function from the scratch org. That's why we have written, or we have updated the project scratch definition.json, and we have included the feature as functions. So now we have successfully created scratch org, that's the scratch org 3. Here you can notice that when the scratch org 3 is automatically created, automatically that name is being changed from the dev hub, that the SF dev hub, something like that, initially it was there, now it is coming as scratch org 3. Now what we will do so always Salesforce function stores in the secure compute environment. Now we need to create the compute environment for particular my compute environment. My Salesforce function will run in that compute environment. So what I will do, I will create the compute environment using SF command. So the command looks like SF, then create, then compute, then hyphen O, then I need to write the scratch org alias, then hyphen A, then I need to name of my compute environment. So for this training purpose, I can give the name as that of my compute environment as that my compute env. That's it. So SF, then env, then space create, then compute, then hyphen O, then we need to put that the alias of our scratch org, then we need to put the alias or the name. Okay, no auth info found for name scratch org 3. Okay. Everything is being right. So let's open the scratch org. Okay. So after scratch org creation, we can log into function instance. So SF login functions. Let's see. So when we will write the SF login function syntax, we need to log into our function dev org. Now we will execute the same syntax for the compute environment creation. Let's see. Okay. Let me check once. This is Salesforce function. This is the scratch org. Everything is right. Just to check the syntax from here, save env create compute, then O. Okay, my spelling mistake basically. It should be scratch org. let's see. Now we can success. Yes. Now here you can see the compute environment we have created. Okay. So the syntax is that sf env space create space compute then -o scratch org the alias, then we need to put that the compute environment name. So here you can see the message. Your compute environment with local alias my compute env is ready to launch the Salesforce function, ready to execute the Salesforce function. Now I will go to my presentations. So until this, what we have done, we have created a SFDS project, and obviously we have connected to a dev org where that the Salesforce function is enabled. Then we have logged in function Salesforce Developer Edition with function enabled org using sf login functions command. Then we have created the scratch org. Before creation of the scratch org, we have updated the feature as functions in the project scratch definition.json file. Then we have created the compute environment for the respective scratch org. Now after this, what we will do, we will create the Salesforce function. This is mostly awaited. How will we create the Salesforce function? This is the syntax, this is the comment we have to create the Salesforce function. We can use when we will want to create the Salesforce function, we have to use that sf generate function command. Let's see. Now what I will do, I will put here sf generate function, then I will name my function as, let's say, account function. Then we can write what type of industry programming language I will use for Salesforce function. So here I will use JavaScript. So definitely we can write -l JavaScript. Let's see. So now this command is creating the Salesforce function where we can use JavaScript programming language to create the to perform the business logic or to perform the business operations with respect to the business requirement, as well as we can use the Salesforce function which can be invoked from our Salesforce platform. So it will take 1 to 2 minutes to create the Salesforce function. So still it is creating. In the meanwhile, we can go back to our presentations. So here the important thing I would like to highlight. So the function name doesn't support the camel case. Function name contains only lowercase letters. So if I will write A as the capital, system will throw the error, or we cannot create the Salesforce function. So remember this thing, the function name contains only lowercase letters and numbers, and should be started with lowercase letter, not started with number. And I discussed this is just like the type of industry based programming language. Currently JavaScript, Java and TypeScript are being supported in Salesforce function, but going forward Salesforce has planned to support other industry program language also. Let's go back to our project. Wow, now we can see the JavaScript function, account function has been created successfully. From where we will get the function, we can see new folder is being created in my project that is called functions, and under function you can see the function name is that account function, and under account function those files are being created automatically. So if I'll go to the present, the same root directory I have mentioned here. Now what we will see, the executable file in the function called as the index.js. So in this file everything is being mentioned. So index.js is the default JS file for the function which has been created by Salesforce. Now you can see we have selected the industry programming language as the JavaScript. So that's why those functions, the format of the function is built by the JavaScript library. Now here we can see the index.js file, export default async function. So I told in the first session, so for now the function can be executed in the asynchronous way, or it will not be executed in the same transaction where Apex class can run. So in the function there will be three parameters: event, context and logger. You can see the description is being also mentioned here. Event is nothing but the payload basically. So when we will invoke the function from Apex class, we can send the parameters. So it represents the data associated with the occurrence of an event and the supporting metadata about the source of that occurrence. So here you can see the event.data. So event.data is nothing but the payload or nothing but the parameters which you have sent to the function from your Salesforce instance or from the Apex class. Now what is context? Context is nothing but the connection between your Salesforce function and the Salesforce org. And logger is nothing but to the capture the log. In Apex class we have written, we can write the system.debug, correct? In JS we can write that the console.log. In function we can use that the logger.info to print the output or to print the log. So here we can see the logger.info invoking account function with payload, this event.data. Now results, we can see the context, the connection, then org, this is the library of Salesforce SDK, that is data API, and then .query. So this is the executable command from Salesforce SDK. So you can use the Salesforce SDK to query the data from Salesforce. Now what we are doing, we are just printing the result, JSON.stringify results here, and we are returning the respective result to the calling component. So this is the architecture, or this is the format of the Salesforce function. So already I have covered what is the Salesforce, what looks like Salesforce function structure. So basically it will have three parameters: event, context and logger. In the going forward we will see how to use those parameters event, context and logger to perform complex business logic operations. Now, as I have told you earlier in the last session, to run the permission sets, to run the functions, we need to enable the permission sets. So how will we enable or how will we create the permission set programmatically? We need to write a XML file here. So I copy from here and we will name this thing. Let's go back to that. So where we need to create the permission set, need to add a XML file or permission for permission set under permission sets in the forceps directory. So now I will go to the forceps directory, close this function and go to the forceps directory. You can see the permission sets. So here we will create the permission set. What would be the name? The name would be functions. So this is the format. This is the XML of the newly created permission set. I will copy this thing. Here you can see. Need to just in the formatting. Sorry. It's good. Okay. Okay. And then close it. Sorry. Okay. So this is the permission set XML. The name is that the functions, and you can see we can create the respective record for the particular object using this function permission set, as well as we can update, we can read obviously, but we cannot delete it using this function. And what is the object? The object is the account. So in the going forward, we will perform the business operations on the account object. So it will be easy to show you how to use the Salesforce function. So let's save it. Now we need to push this function to our Scratch org. How will you push that? The common syntax is there. Let's say sfdx, force is to source is to push. Then -f, then we need to put the alias name of our Scratch org. So our Scratch org alias name is Scratch org 3. Let's see if we are able to success or not. So now what this command will do, this command basically will create or will deploy or will push the permission set into the Scratch org. Now it's pushing the permission set into the Scratch org and it's executed successfully. You can see the comment here, updating source tracking done and the pushed source. So we have created the permission set to run the function. Let's see going to the next slide. Now we have created the function. Now we have to test, right? So to test the Salesforce function, we have two ways. One is that we can run the Salesforce function locally from our local host 8080 or from any other port, or we can run the Salesforce function from Salesforce instance. But for today, bad news for us, that is the thing is, due to my some machine issue or due to my some OS issue, I cannot show how to run function from the local environment, but I can guide you. But definitely we will show how to call the function from Salesforce. That is the target, that is the main target. How will you invoke the Salesforce function from the Salesforce? That part we will show you, but this is unfortunate. I am not able to show how to run the function from local environment. So to run the function from local environment, we can create the payload JSON file in the root directory. Let's see, this is a payload JSON file we can create. Let's say we can create this payload.json file. So in the payload JSON file, what we will do, let's say we can create the name, we want to create some account records, right? So name is, we can put that Shantanu at online. Now after that we can put that website. So website is that, let's say assume that so this is the payload.json file we have to create, and this payload we have to send, in the function by the event.data. So payload is nothing but the payload we can send to event.data. So event can take the payloads in the Salesforce function as we have discussed earlier. After that we need to execute the Salesforce run functions. So what is the command here? The run function locally from the function directory, that's sf run function start. So when you press this command, automatically the function will be started, and in the same command window you can see the debug or you can see the output. Now how to send the payload to the Salesforce function? You just need to open another terminal, because in this terminal the output will come. Basically you can say this is the output window, okay? And to send the payload to the Salesforce function, we need to use that sfrun function -l http localhost 8080. So where the function will run to execute the function, and then we need to pass the payload.json. So @function, this is the root directory of my function, this is the function is the directory, this is the account function, my function name, and this is the payload JSON which I want to send to the Salesforce function. And when it will be executed successfully, you can see the output in this terminal or in this window. But unfortunately, I cannot show you how to run function from local environment, but definitely if I will be able to solve that the issue in my machine, I will bring a new video that how to run function from local environment. Now let's focus how to run function from Apex class. So before that, to function to how to invoke the function from Apex class, definitely we need to deploy or we need to push function into the respective Salesforce Scratch org, correct? Now how will you do that? The thing is that we can deploy the Salesforce function into the Scratch org using sf deploy functions -o then Scratch org alias. Let's see. Now I will show you what is the importance of the Git. So I can write here sf deploy functions, then I can put here my what is the alias, Scratch org alias is okay. Let's see. See, you cannot deploy Salesforce function without committing into the GitHub. Okay, so that's why I told you need to install Git to deploy the Salesforce function. So what I will do, first we will commit our code base to Git. Let's say Git. First we need to initialize. Is initialize empty Git repository. Then we need to add. Now adding the components into Git. Now we have to commit. Let's say adding Salesforce function. Okay. Now all the respective components are being added in my Git. Now we will reuse the same syntax sf deploy functions -o then Scratch org 3. So here Scratch org 3 is nothing but the alias of my newly created Scratch org. Now it will take some time to deploy the Salesforce function. So I believe you have understood how to create the Salesforce function, what is the importance of the sf commands, as well as what is the importance of using the respective folder called project scratch definition.json, right? And we have learned what is the syntax for deploying Salesforce function to our Scratch org. Now it will take some time to deploy Salesforce function in our Scratch org. Let's wait for few minutes. Now see, the function is being pushing into that respective libraries using respective libraries. So you can see that is using that the Heroku Node.js npm file. It uses the Node.js engine because already I have used already I have mentioned that the type of the function is the JavaScript. Now it's pushing changes to functions. Now still it is running. We can close this window. Now why we are doing this? Because we want to invoke this Salesforce function from the Apex class. So definitely when we want to run or when we want to invoke the Salesforce function from locally, this is not needed. This deployment of function is not needed to push in Salesforce instance, but here we want to call this Salesforce function from the Apex class. That's why we need to deploy this Salesforce function. Here you can see one thing, obviously we have to remember, when we deploy the Salesforce function, before deploying the Salesforce function, we have to commit the respective components into Git. Let's go back to the VS Code. Still it's pushing changes to functions. Still it's working to deploy the first Salesforce function into my Scratch org. Wow! So now we have created the Salesforce function successfully, as well as we have deployed the Salesforce function successfully. Okay. Now how will you know that my Salesforce function is working correctly or not? So for that, just wait for a few minutes. We will create the Apex class, then we will call the Salesforce function from our Apex class. Let's go back to my presentations. Now invoke Salesforce function from Apex class. So what we will do, we will create the Apex class. Here we will create one Apex class. So again I go back to the command palette, by pressing Ctrl+Shift+P. Then we are creating the Apex class. Let's say my class name is account service class. Now that account service class will be triggered. Now I can declare the method is, let's assume that public static void, then account service function, or I can write that account function. Okay. Yeah. Now what we will do, we'll call the, first we will set the respective function. How will you do that? This is the Salesforce syntax. Let's say functions dot, then function, then I can put that the variable name, let's say function obj is equal to, I can copy this thing, dot get. This is very important. First we need to get the Salesforce function in the Apex class. Okay. For that, what I need to do, we need to write the root directory of the function. So how will you write that? First, what is our project name? Our project name is the training Salesforce function. So first write down the project name, training Salesforce, sorry, my mistake, training Salesforce function. Then we will write what is our function name. So our function name is that, you can see our function name is account function. So we will write account function. That's it. Now we will call this function from this Apex class. So what we will do, we will use the functions dot my or function invocation, then we will declare the respective object, let's say invocation object is equal to function object, or I can write down that the my function object dot invoke. So here we can send the parameter. So when we want to run the Salesforce function locally, we have to use the payload.json file, right? to send the parameter. So here also we can send the parameter. Okay. So for now, what I will do, I can pass only the name. Okay. So let's say name is to account name. Let's assume that I can pass this as a knowledge studio. Okay. So in this way we can declare the parameter and we can send the parameter to my Salesforce function. Now one thing we have to remember, we have to send the parameter in the JSON structure. So this is nothing but the JSON format, right? Now we want to get the result from here, right? So for now I can write down string JSON response is equal to, let's say, info JSON object dot get response. Okay, or to check the result we can write down the system.debug, or it's that. That's it. Save the Apex class and try to push this Apex class. So how will you push that the component to the scratch arc? You need to write the same syntax, let's say sf, or sorry, my mistake, sfdx force is to source is to push, then hyphen a hyphen u, then our scratch arc. So now it is trying to push the respective Apex class by which from or from where we will invoke the Salesforce function. Here you can see we can use the functions dot function my function object, then functions dot function dot get, then project name dot my function name, then I am invoking or I am calling the respective Salesforce function with the parameters which are being declared or which are being structured in the JSON format. Now if I will go back to the presentations, so we have created the Apex class, we have pushed the Apex class into the scratch arc. Now there is time to see the result. Execute and test Salesforce function. How will you do that? For now we can see to execute the Apex class from the anonymous block. So let's go back to our VS Code. We will open the scratch arc and we will call this Apex class from the developer console or from the anonymous block of the developer console. Let's open the scratch arc first. So this is the scratch arc where domain is that this one. Now open the developer console. Open execute anonymous window. What I will do, I will write here is put the class name dot method name. So what is your method name? Account function. So here you can change any name. It doesn't mean that you have to write the same name the function names, but you can put any name here. Account function, let's say execute it. So now what it is doing, it is calling the Salesforce function and it's executed successfully. Now if I'll go to that, if I'll click on debug only, wow, you can see we can execute or we can call the Salesforce function from the Apex class successfully. So here if we'll open the index.jx file from the account function, we just run a query, select ID name from account, and we are showing the results using json.stringify. and we are just throwing the results to the Apex class. Now here, if you open the debug log, you can see the response is coming, the done true, total size is equal to 1, because in the scratch org only one account record is there, and in the records we are able to see the respective information is coming. Now what information are coming? ID and name. Why? Because in the index.js file we have written only select ID comma name from account. Now we are happy how to run the Salesforce function, and we are able to run the Salesforce function successfully from the Apex class. Now the big question is that how will we check logs from function? So let's assume that we are able to see the system.debug information from the Apex class. This we are able to see, but this logger.info or this result, how will we see when we will run the Salesforce function from the Apex class? How will you see the output from the logger.info? So that discussion I will cover into the next session. Now the question is that, let's say, can we use the try-catch statement in Salesforce function? Yes, we can use the try-catch statement in Salesforce function. What is the context in the function? Context represents connection between Salesforce function and the Salesforce org. Thank you everyone for joining this session. In the next session, we will show how to show the output from the Salesforce function. Thank you all. Bye.